The night was still when a soft sound broke the silence inside the Whitmore estate. A faint clinking of metal against porcelain echoed through the grand kitchen, too delicate to be part of the usual routine. James Whitmore, a 45-year-old businessman known for his cold precision, had returned home earlier than anyone expected. The house, massive, white-pillared, and immaculate, stood like a monument to success. But behind the polished marble and quiet halls, something was happening that would change James forever. He had just placed his car keys on the counter when he heard it again. Curious, he walked toward the kitchen. The lights were dim, the hum of the refrigerator steady. He turned the corner, and stopped. There, crouched by the pantry door, was a woman in a faded uniform. She was eating from a plastic container, her back against the wall, as if trying to make herself invisible. When she noticed him, her eyes widened with fear. The fork slipped from her hand, clattering against the floor. Her name was Althea Green. 41. A quiet, hard-working maid who had been cleaning James's house for the past 10 months. She had always spoken politely, always kept her head down, never asked for anything beyond her paycheck. Now she looked terrified, like someone caught trespassing in her own workplace. "Mr. Whitmore," she stammered, standing too quickly. I'm sorry, sir. I shouldn't be here this late." James frowned, his voice calm but sharp. "What are you doing, Althea?" She tried to speak, but her throat tightened. I didn't want the food to go to waste." He looked at the half-eaten chicken and vegetables in her container, the kind of dinner his chef prepared daily and often discarded untouched. "You're eating leftovers?" he asked quietly. Althea nodded, shame in her eyes. "I'm sorry, sir. I didn't mean to disrespect your home. I just didn't have dinner tonight." James's brows knit together. "You didn't eat?" She shook her head, clutching the container close like a secret. "It's fine, really. I wasn't going to take much. I'll put it back." He took a slow step forward, lowering his voice. "Put it back? You think I'm angry because you're eating?" Althea bit her lip, struggling to hold her composure. "People don't like it when someone like me eats their food." The words hit him harder than he expected. Someone like me. He saw the truth in her eyes, years of humiliation, of being treated as less than human. He remembered how his own mother used to clean offices late at night when he was a child, hiding her exhaustion so he wouldn't see it. Somewhere along the way, he'd forgotten what that looked like. "Sit down," he said gently. "Sir." "Sit, Althea. Please." She hesitated, then slowly lowered herself into a chair at the long kitchen table. James went to the counter, retrieved the leftover tray, and warmed it up. The room filled with the smell of roasted chicken and garlic butter. When he placed the plate in front of her, she couldn't look at it. "I can't," she whispered. "You're my boss." "And you're hungry," he replied simply. Tears welled in her eyes. For a moment, she stared at the food as though it were forbidden. Then she picked up the fork with trembling hands and began to eat. Each bite came with quiet sobs she tried to hide. James sat across from her, arms folded, feeling something he hadn't in years, guilt. He'd built a life of control, of status and respect. But in that moment, he felt smaller than the woman sitting across from him. When she finished, she wiped her eyes and murmured, "Thank you, Mr. Whitmore. I'll clean everything up." He shook his head. "Don't worry about that. Just tell me, why didn't you eat before you came here?" Althea hesitated, then spoke softly. "My daughter. She's 16. I wanted to make sure she had dinner before school tomorrow. Things have been tight lately." James's expression softened. "You skip meals so your daughter can eat?" She gave a small, embarrassed smile. "It's not so bad. I've been through worse." He leaned back, staring at her with a mix of disbelief and admiration. "And you come here every day, working 12 hours, just to make sure she has a chance. Althea nodded. That's what mothers do. James's chest tightened. What's her name? Maya, she said, her voice carrying a quiet pride. She's smart. Wants to study medicine one day. But I don't know how I'll afford college. James looked down at his hands, remembering when he'd said something similar to his mother, back when he was a boy with nothing but dreams. Maybe I can help. Her eyes widened. Sir, I can't accept that. You've already been kind. This isn't charity, he said. It's a chance. For your daughter, and maybe for me, too. She looked away, tears slipping down her cheeks again. You don't even know us. He smiled faintly. Maybe it's time I start. That night, James couldn't sleep. He lay awake in his massive bedroom, staring at the ceiling while memories crept back like ghosts, the hunger, the cold nights, the sound of his mother's tired footsteps. He had built a life so far from that past, he thought he'd escaped it. But Althea had reminded him that pain doesn't disappear just because you rise above it, it just finds new people to live in. By morning, he'd made a decision. He called his personal assistant and asked for something he'd never requested before, a list of community programs, scholarships, and organizations that supported single parents. When he came downstairs, Althea was already in the living room, dusting shelves. She froze when she saw him. Good morning, sir. Morning, he replied. Did you have breakfast? She looked embarrassed. Not yet, sir. I usually wait until after the morning work. Not today, he said, motioning to the dining area. You're eating first. She started to protest, but he cut her off with a raised hand. No arguments. He poured her a cup of coffee, scrambled some eggs, and sat across the table while she ate. It felt strange, almost awkward, like two people from different worlds pretending they weren't. But it also felt right. When she finished, she whispered, "You don't have to do this every morning." I know, he said. But I want to. For a brief moment, her tired face softened into a smile, the first he had ever seen from her. And in that simple expression, something shifted inside him. But not everyone in the house approved. That afternoon, his longtime house manager, Mrs. Klein, pulled him aside. Mr. Whitmore, I heard you had an incident with Althea last night. He folded his arms. Incident? She was eating in the kitchen after hours. It's against house rules. James gave her a long, steady look. Those rules don't matter anymore. Sir, with all due respect, staff should know their place. We can't have. Enough, he interrupted, his voice calm but firm. If I ever hear anyone in this house treat Althea, or anyone, like they're less than human, they'll be gone. Understood? Mrs. Klein blinked, startled. Of course, sir. James turned and walked away, anger simmering beneath his usually composed exterior. He hadn't realized until then how easily cruelty had disguised itself as order. That night, when Althea gathered her things to leave, he stopped her at the door. Do you have a car? She shook her head. No, sir. The bus stop is a few blocks away. He hesitated. It's late. Let me have my driver take you home. She tried to refuse, but he insisted. Please. Humor me. As she got into the car, she turned back and said softly, Thank you, Mr. Whitmore. For seeing me. He didn't answer right away. But as the car pulled away, he whispered to himself, No, thank you for reminding me what it means to care. He didn't know it then, but that simple act of compassion was only the beginning. Because soon, Althea's past, and the quiet struggles she never spoke of, would come crashing into his world, testing everything he thought he knew about kindness, loyalty, and love. The next few weeks changed everything inside the Whitmore estate. James kept his word. Every morning, he made sure Althea had breakfast before beginning her chores. He asked questions about her daughter, about her life, about the things that mattered to her. For the first time in years, he felt connected to something real. But behind Althea's gentle smiles, a quiet storm brewed. She was grateful, deeply so, but guilt gnawed at her. She didn't want pity. She wanted to stand on her own. Every act of kindness from James reminded her of how fragile her position was. And yet, each morning, when she saw the small kindness in his eyes, her fear softened. One Thursday evening, James called her into his office. "I've been looking into some programs," he said, sliding a folder across the desk. "This scholarship could cover your daughter's entire college tuition. I've already spoken to the director." Althea froze, staring at the papers as if they were written in another language. "Sir. I don't know what to say." "Say yes," he said simply. "Let Maya have the future she deserves." Tears welled in her eyes. "You've done too much already." He shook his head. "Not enough. You've worked harder than anyone I know, Althea. The least I can do is make sure your daughter doesn't have to fight as hard as you did." She tried to respond, but the words caught in her throat. She pressed her hands together and whispered, "Thank you. From both of us." The moment felt fragile and profound. James didn't fully understand why he cared so much, but something about Althea and her quiet dignity had awakened a part of him long buried under wealth and loneliness. A few days later, he visited the neighborhood where Althea lived. It was a modest part of town, peeling paint, cracked sidewalks, the faint smell of rain on dust. Maya answered the door when he arrived, her schoolbook stacked on the table behind her. She was bright-eyed and polite, a reflection of her mother's strength. "You must be Mr. Whitmore," she said shyly. "James is fine," he smiled. "Your mom talks about you all the time." Maya blushed. "She does. All good things," he chuckled. They talked for a while, about her classes, her dreams of studying biomedical science, her worries about money. James listened closely, and for the first time in a long while, he felt hope in someone else's voice. When Althea walked in from the kitchen, she nearly dropped the dish towel in surprise. "Sir, you didn't have to come all the way here." "I wanted to meet your daughter," he said gently. "Now I see where she gets her determination." Althea's heart swelled, but deep down, she felt uneasy. The line between kindness and charity was blurring, and she didn't want her pride to disappear. That night, after James left, she sat with Maya and said softly, "Never forget that help is a blessing, but you must earn your way, too." Maya nodded. "I will, Mama." Weeks passed, and everything seemed to be improving, until one afternoon when Althea fainted in the kitchen. The sound of crashing dishes brought James running. He found her on the floor, pale and sweating, her breathing shallow. "Althea," he shouted, kneeling beside her. "Call 911. Minutes later, the ambulance arrived. James rode with her to the hospital, his chest tight with worry. He'd never felt this helpless before, not in business, not in life. When the doctor came out, his expression was grave. "She's severely anemic and malnourished," the doctor said quietly. "When was the last time she had a full medical checkup?" James swallowed hard. "I don't know." The doctor sighed. "She's been neglecting her health for a long time. Stress, exhaustion, poor diet, it's taken a toll. We'll keep her for observation tonight." When Althea finally woke, James was sitting by her bedside. Her voice was weak but steady. "You shouldn't be here, sir." He leaned forward. "Don't say that. You scared me half to death." She gave a small smile. "I'll be fine. I just overworked myself." "You didn't eat, Althea," he said, his voice breaking. "Even after everything, you still didn't take care of yourself." She looked away. "I'm used to taking care of others. I forget about me sometimes." He reached for her hand, hesitated, then gently took it. Promise me something. When you get better, you'll let me help properly. No hiding, no pride, just honesty. Tears slid down her cheeks. I don't want to be your burden. You're not, he said softly. You're a reminder that I still have a heart. The days that followed drew them closer. James visited the hospital daily, brought food, made calls, even arranged her insurance bills anonymously. Althea recovered slowly, but her spirit was changed. She saw something in James she hadn't before, a man fighting his own loneliness through kindness. When she was finally discharged, she insisted on returning to work immediately. I need to, she said. The routine helps. He agreed on one condition. You'll only work part-time until you're stronger. She laughed weakly. You don't give up, do you? Not when it comes to people who matter, he replied. Spring arrived, and with it came good news. Maya had received a full scholarship, thanks to the program James helped her apply to. When Althea told him, she couldn't stop crying. She did it, she said, her voice shaking. She really did it. James smiled. You both did. But life, as it often does, wasn't done testing them. One rainy evening, James returned home from a meeting to find the police at his gate. His heart sank. The officer explained there had been a hit-and-run accident downtown. Althea's car had been struck as she was crossing the street after visiting the grocery store. She was in critical condition. He drove to the hospital in silence, gripping the steering wheel until his knuckles turned white. When he reached the emergency room, the doctor met him with weary eyes. She's alive, the doctor said, but it's bad. James sat outside the ICU for hours, staring at the floor, praying, something he hadn't done since childhood. Around midnight, Maya arrived, tears streaming down her face. She collapsed into his arms. She can't leave me, she whispered. He held her tightly. She won't. She's too strong. But deep down, he knew strength sometimes isn't enough. 3 days later, Althea opened her eyes. Her voice was faint, but her smile was there. I told you not to worry, Mr. Whitmore. He laughed softly through tears. You scared us again. I always do, she whispered. Maybe that's my way of reminding you I'm still here. She recovered slowly, but something about her had changed. She spoke more about faith, about finding peace even in struggle. And one morning, as sunlight streamed through the hospital window, she said something that broke him completely. If anything ever happens to me, she said quietly, promise me you'll look out for Maya. She's all I have. Don't talk like that, he said, his voice cracking. You'll be fine. But she only smiled. Promise me. I promise, he whispered. Months later, Maya started college. Althea attended the orientation, weak but radiant. She hugged her daughter tightly, whispering, You're my greatest pride. A week after that day, Althea passed away peacefully in her sleep. The doctor said her body had been too weak to recover fully. When James received the call, he sat in silence for a long time, unable to move. Then, with quiet resolve, he arranged her funeral. He made sure it was simple, dignified, just the way she would have wanted. Maya stood beside him, tears streaming down her face, clutching his hand. After everyone left, James lingered by her grave. You changed me, he whispered. You reminded me what it means to care. I'll keep my promise. And he did. He set up a foundation in Althea's name, the Green Promise Fund, dedicated to helping single parents and low-income students pursue education. Maya became its first ambassador, graduating with honors and dedicating her degree to her mother's memory. Years later, when journalists asked James why he started the foundation, he simply said, because once, I saw someone hiding to eat leftovers. And in her humility, I found my humanity. The story of Althea and James became more than just a tale of kindness, it became a testament to how a single act of compassion can ripple through generations, turning sorrow into legacy, and heartbreak into hope.